I have everything I have ever wanted. I am a doctor. I have my surgery. I even have a little coin to my name, although I have much more substantial debt hanging over me, but let's forget about that. That will be paid off in time, I'm sure of it. I have Erica, my faithful dog. I didn't know that I needed or wanted Erica before our recent adventures, but she's been a steadfast companion. And I have friends, albeit distant ones. I even have sponsors, mentors in the royal court. Dr. Parvot is a truly kind man. But I also still have this unsatisfied curiosity. Everywhere I go, every time I interact with these Purple Hand cultists, their servants, their affiliates, people like them, I come across knowledge that would have ordinarily been forbidden to me. Knowledge I would not have been able to access had I followed a straight path toward my doctorate. Now I have in my possession yet another one of their tomes, written in a language that very few people seem capable of understanding, and yet, for some reason for me, some of it just clicks into place. There's a part of me that knows the danger, I recognise the danger, and I weigh it in both hands. I realise that danger at this time is probably not desirable, that I could, in fact, just commit myself to medicine, to treating people, to hiring on an apprentice, making myself a successful doctor in Middenheim, having the life I've always dreamed of, and living a safe life. And then, on the other hand, there is that forbidden knowledge, that temptation of the unknown. What more could I be? And what more could I achieve if I just opened my mind a little to that which is hidden? This is Red Moon Roleplaying.
Sigfreda No Name, or, as you are now more commonly known, Lady Marguerite von Wittgenstein. The first days are a little rough. Managing a place completely on your own, with minimal furniture. It does take time to start getting your first customers, but it does come, eventually. And things do get a lot easier when you finally receive your apprentice. You did, after all, ask Dr. Luigi Parvot for assistance in the matter. Most apprentices are just that, new apprentices, youngish people, roughly around the age maybe sometimes of 16, 17, 18, even 19, all keen to learn, and after paying a fee for the privilege to the Physicians Guild, assigned to a doctor. You wanted something a bit better. You wanted someone recommended by Dr. Parvot, and he had to think about it, and he thinks he found just the woman. This young woman isn't as young as some other apprentices. She's actually very close in age to yourself, Sigfreda. But that's because she's already started. She's actually already been someone else's apprentice for about a year or so. From what you've gathered, though, there was some sort of incident. You think the doctor went by the name Dr. Heigl Cliff. Apparently, he'd been hiring several apprentices, which is not necessarily unusual, just quite generous. How many doctors even want one, never mind several? It turns out, though, it was all some sort of cover-up. Apparently, they were tried and hung only a few weeks ago for, what was it? Oh yes, illegal research. They'd apparently been conducting studies on cadavers, which of course is highly illegal. You're allowed to study living patients, but the dead are in the hands of more. It's considered very, very legal, possibly even necromancy, according to the religious lot, to study the dead. And so this man is no more, leaving all his apprentices in the wind. But Dr. Parvot says that this young woman, a woman by the name of Leah Dirtz, shows great promise. She apparently is from the Warrenberg. The Warrenberg being the slum district at the bottom of the mountain. So some would argue it isn't really even part of Middenheim. But people live there, and there are desperate people, there are farmers, there are even some people who use what little they earn to ride those chairlifts into the city and at least try and sell their wares at the marketplaces. This young woman came from a family like that. But she showed great promise when she was taken on by this doctor, again perhaps sadly for unscrupulous reasons, but she learned. She learned to read, she learned the doctor's trade, at least the start of it. And apparently she was also the one who reported this individual. So she was given to you. She is again, Middenheimer in her early 20s. Short blonde hair, very quiet, very observant. Leah Dirtz. She's been your apprentice now for at least 2 or even 3 weeks. How do you treat this young apprentice, Sigfreda? She does what you say. She doesn't question you. She merely listens and observes. But she does do as you say, and does seem to take on board what you say.
Well, if she has related her past to me, or it's been passed on to me, then I have some sympathy. After all, my mentor, may he rest, Dr. Dunkirk Claverman, well back in time, he was not exactly opposed to the occasional desecration of a corpse if it meant experimentation. Obviously, that kind of thing wasn't publicised there either, but the laws in the countryside are far less strict in many cases, or at least harder to enforce. So I know of that kind of practice. I can't say that I disapprove of it entirely. I think there's a great deal one could learn from a cadaver. But the truly spiritual elements do take exception to such pioneering thought. I won't share this with Leah. After all, I barely know her. I'm not going to be a horribly stern, abusive, punishing mistress to her. That's not my way, and frankly I don't intend to revisit on her the treatment I received. Plus she's considerably older than I was when I was taken in as an apprentice. No, if she is quiet and she is diligent and she shows a willingness to learn, then what I will do is encourage. I'm not interested in being her friend. We're not going to go out drinking. We're not going to chat about boys or girls or whatever takes her fancy. Nothing like that. What we are going to do is perform our treatments, and whenever a treatment is performed, I will then ask her questions about the nature of it, what I did right, what she thinks I might have done wrong, and I won't be offended if she pokes holes in my practice. And then I will encourage her to read up on the subject by referring to one of the many books or scrolls or texts that I now have available. If there's one thing I do not lack, over this long journey I have been accumulating books of various ages and origins, all about the anatomy, botany. Let's not share the necromantic material with her just yet. And so there's plenty that she can be reading up on when she isn't working. So she's worked hard, but she isn't being treated like a slave or victim, I would hope.
And she takes to it just fine. There are no complaints from her. This is, well, you can tell. After all, you had a similar upbringing. Not that anyone else knows about that other than your dear friends. The slums are the slums. They're even worse than the slums of the actual city, all the way down there in the Warrenburg. You've even heard rumour that crime is rampant, and there's even, well, rumours that when mutants existed, because of course they don't anymore, according to Imperial Proclamation, most of the mutants of Middenheim would be found in places like that.
I can believe it. I can certainly believe that the dregs of monstrosity live in the same place as the dregs of humanity, and that doesn't mean I stand in judgment of her. I came up poor, without an income of my own, And something that she does demonstrate to me in stark contrast to my often self-pitying mode is she probably had to go through far worse torments from far more people than I did. At least my abuser was one man, and I could learn his tics and tricks and how to get around them from time to time, know how to appease him, how to please him, or just simply avoid him. But in her case... No, I've heard the kinds of rumours about what happens in the Warrenburg and down in the dives there, what people do with young women's bodies, what kind of trade takes place out of regular business hours, and how certain people make payment for services rendered. Again, I don't judge anyone who has been caught in that system. I feel for her, but I'm not going to raise the subject because, well, it's not my business to do it. And for the time being, while I'm coming to know her as a potential physician, I don't really want her to start mistaking the nature of our relationship. I am not her doctor.
Of course not. And of course, you are a noble. And she does everything a peasant would be expected to do. She doesn't bow at your feet every time she sees you, but there is deference, not only to you being her superior as a doctor, but your name, which of course has come up quite a few times over the last month. The letters have started to dwindle a little. You're not getting quite as many as you did 3 or 4 weeks ago, but there are still a few people trying to invite you to parties and negotiations and marriage proposals, but they are starting to dwindle a little, especially when after that first month you get your final big official letter from the duchy where Wittgendorf was located. Again, all these letters you've been getting sent are very polite, very accommodating, but as time's passed, more and more they have just a little tinge in them, a little tinge of, essentially, where the hell are you, and why aren't you coming down here to be a noble? The final one informs you that, sadly, your baron title is going to be removed. While you are not in any official trouble, they are disappointed that you seem to have been unable to fill your duties, and that title is now going to return to the Duke of the area to be, well, handed out to whoever he wishes, if he hands it out at all.
Well, that's a shame. I had intended to appoint someone from among the community as my heir in the event that I was incapacitated, but I understand if this is the way the wheels of aristocracy work in that part of the world, then so be it. I imagine anyone given a throne and, well, frankly, ruined castle is welcome to it. But I will say to Leah, if she continues on occasion to scrape and grovel or bow and address me as my lady, on one moment as I send a patient out the door, leaving it just as her, myself, and Erica. Leah, a word, please.
Yes, sir, my lady, doctor.
It's about that, actually. Please, stop scrubbing the blood and just take a seat for a moment.
She wrinkles her nose a little, but does as instructed.
The blood won't go anywhere. I mean, quite the contrary. Don't you find it remarkable how it congeals on the floor like that? But let's not get distracted by the nature of our business. I needed to speak with you about something that's been pressing upon me. And it's how you refer to me. In front of the patients, and in private for that matter. I understand that you have been raised to refer to people like myself as my lady and so on, and to bow or curtsy and all the rest. I want to make this absolutely clear. In this place, especially, everyone is equal in terms of our feudal system. Do you understand? A peasant might come in here with boils on his bum, But a noble may also come in here with the same condition, and we would treat that person the same way. You can refer to me as Doctor, because that is my role here. But nobody, patient or physician's apprentice, should be treating me as if I am somehow better because I am one of the nobility. Just refer to me as Doctor, in other words. I probably didn't need to give that long spiel, but Doctor is fine, no bowing, and for goodness sake, if you must curtsy in that apron, do realise that whenever you do so, the hem will trail in whatever fluids haven't been mopped up yet, so just avoid it. Address me as Doctor. Doctor is fine.
She gives you a bit of a look for a moment. Not necessarily a look of defiance, more a look of calculating confusion. She's trying to think of something, and she nods and says, "Aye, Dr. Wittgenstein, I can do that."
Just Doctor. There's only one of us here. You don't need to use my name. Leah, please. Listen, I very much enjoy how circumspect you are. You are very specific with your word choices. Unlike me, you don't enjoy the sound of your own voice, it seems, and therefore you don't talk at length. And that suits me. Maybe things will change as we become more comfortable around each other. But just Doctor. Doctor is fine.
All right, Doctor. I'm fine with that, but just no offense. If we're all equal here, just be careful. Some of the rumors going about you, I don't believe them. I've coming to find you, with all due respect, a good teacher, but some of the rumors going around, you don't want to be confused with someone sympathizing with those Nordlanders, all this equal business.
Oh, no. Outside of these doors, I'll be whipping peasants like the best of nobility, don't you worry. No, I'm joking. Don't look on your face. I promise I'm not actually going to be doing anything like that. My point is, it just gets in the way of business here. I understand why people will make rumours about me like that. I am a newcomer in this city, and frankly, back home, based on the letter I just read that arrived today, it sounds like my own territory may be coming into some kind of anguish. But that isn't my concern. My concern is what takes place within these four walls, the health of our patients, and your learning. I will only consider my role here a success if our patients walk out of here on 2 feet and healthy, and if you every day have learned something new.
She nods again and says, "Aye, you're a weird one, but I just... Sorry, I just don't want... Well, Dr. Cliff was a weird one too. Turned out he was making a fool of us all."
Oh, you should have met the man who tutored me. I'm sure we would have stories to tell. But that may have to come another time. Is your doctor still alive?
Oh, no, ma'am. No, Doctor. They hung him. On account of being
hanged,
a criminal.
Leah, hanged. Drapes are hung. People are hanged. See, you've learned something new today.
Sorry, they hanged him, on account of the corpses and the rumors that he maybe was talking to some, they had the whole thing where they were saying that they might even be like a cult of folks dealing with the necromancy and all that.
Yes, of course. I didn't know if he was languishing in some dungeon somewhere, but if he was hanged from the neck, then that was probably what was for the best. In a way, it's always a shame when a great mind is wasted at the end of a rope, but at the same time you do have to abide by the laws of these places, don't you?
That you do, aye. But I best get back to work.
Indeed, we've got another patient coming in soon, and speaking of boils on the bum, I think Our next man is thoroughly riddled with them, so make sure you've heated up my lances.
And off she goes. No need to roll intuition. You think she got what you were saying, and her comments were more of actual concern rather than telling off, as it were.
Yeah. And the truth is, for all my pretense that I don't care what I'm called, I don't care if I'm Sigfreda or Marguerite or a peasant or a lady, the incessant repetition, not just from her but from the patients, is bad enough from the patients calling me my lady. The only title I'm interested in is being a doctor, and that is what is starting to grate against my skin. The fact that I think people have more respect for me because of this fabrication than where my talents lie.
Indeed. Speaking of which, you do still have time. If you did want to send one final letter in response to that letter you just received, you might still be able to make a case for someone becoming a village foreman of the little village of Wittgendorf.
Well, okay, while she's preparing some medical instruments, I'll quickly walk over to my desk, draw out the quill and ink pot. Oh good, there is a sheet of parchment here. Let's see. We'll write to the... I suppose we're going to be writing to the presiding government, and whatever representative wrote to us last.
Yes, luckily they do have a habit of leaving their addresses on the letters. They're far more considerate than cultists.
Ah, good. So I see. Dear Right Honourable Manfred Kingus. What an interesting name that is. Right Honourable Manfred Kingus. I write to you belatedly due to the demanding nature of my calling in Middenheim. Please accept my sincerest apologies for the delay in my response. However, I am distressed to see that you are prepared to break up my lands and return them to the Duke without giving me the chance to respond or sending a messenger to speak with me in person, which is why I respond now. That little, I'm saying to myself, that little thing there may make him think twice about carving up lands before sending actual messengers. So, what next? So, due to my lack of issue or surviving family, being the only Wittgenstein on record, it is to me, under the law of the land, to designate my successor. And while I have all respect, adoration, and faith in the Duke's rule, the Duke is not my nominated successor. If those papers have been lost in the destruction of my tower, which I have heard of belatedly, I like that word belatedly, I think I'll have to use it again, that I have heard of belatedly, I believe the next most qualified individual, as if they care about qualifications in a shitty little burg like Wittgendorf. Most qualified individual is, let's see, I think her name was Sigrid, wasn't it? Not
Sigrid Summerfield.
Sigrid Summerfield. While this individual may come as a surprise to the Duke or be unknown to you, she can be considered a wise woman of the community, and given the distance of the village from any notable city in the area, I believe, under the laws of the land, etc., etc., yes, there we go. Alright, so Sigfrid Summerfield is my heir. This is my last word on the subject. If you will not abide by my decision, I will be in touch with the magistrate. Oh, hang on, is he the magistrate? I'll put a line through that. I will be contacting you via my representatives in Middenheim. Exclamation mark. Ha! There you go. Yours sincerely, with all the love for Wittgendorf that I can spare, Lady Marguerite von Wittgenstein. And my little seal there, that bird that I've still not identified with a snake in its beak. Was it a worm or a snake? I don't know. The seal keeps getting all messed up. Leah?
Yes?
Are the instruments heated?
Aye.
Or at least over the fire?
Aye, of course.
Good. Please take this scroll. Can you take this to one of the local courier offices with these silver coins? There is an address on it, but if they need you to confirm it, I'm needing this to be taken to the local potentate representatives. This will need to be delivered to the local potentates in Mackenstein. They'll know where to send it, but just make sure you emphasize it and pass this coin to them. You can keep one of them for yourself.
Feel free to roll a fellowship roll of some sort. Do you think you were being charming in that letter? Intimidating? Trying to emphasize your leadership?
I will go for, let's see. I'll go for leadership. I'm actually fairly decent at that.
Make a roll.
Basically trying to sound authoritative. Okay, I get 20 out of 49.
That's a good roll. That's a success. And so, time passes, and you eventually get a response to your letter. It's quite a positive one. They are very happy you are finally deemed to give a response, and they fully understand your situation and give their condolences. Of course, in his great mercy, the Duke Whittold Mackenschen, has indeed decided to allow the electing of a village foreman to unofficially represent the area, although of course the title of Baron cannot be passed down to a peasant, though the letter goes on to say how wonderfully charitable you are to give your house holdings and your fortune to this individual. House holdings and a fortune you know you don't have.
Yes, well, that's something for Sigrid to make for herself, because I never had it.
Indeed, but it is all signed. They do sadly say, of course, your official title as Baron is rescinded, but, well, you cannot take a noble title away, unless, of course, you've actually done a crime, and even then, normally, you just get killed or executed by sword for that sort of thing. So you are now allowed to enjoy the role of a landless noble. You are still a lady, but legally you have no land, no official responsibility, and no income, other than, of course, the one you make for yourself. It is still better than nothing, but it does finally bring you down to the lowest of the low as far as nobles are concerned, and the letters all stop.
Well, that is a relief. This is where I want to be. The title gets me where I have been, but without the subterfuge and, frankly, administrative hassle of having, well, frankly, peasants dependent on me. Not that, in my experience, peasants aren't as dependent on their lords as the lords and ladies would like to believe, but I'm content with that. Now, have I had the opportunity to actually go and visit the Graf's son, as that was my hope after the surgery was starting to establish itself?
You certainly have. Again, now being freed from these chains, as it were, of nobility, you do have a little freedom. It's funny, really. It occurs to you that you've got away with it. You've officially done what some people can only dream of, impersonated a noble, got all the benefits, and now, safely, got out of it, so that the consequences are going to be very mild. No one is going to be investigating a low, landless noble, not in Middenheim, certainly. They might in Altdorf a little, but not here. You think don't need to worry about that now, as long as you are careful, of course.
No, I can well imagine that there are all kinds of landless nobles that have fled their own kingdoms in the events of war, insurrection, and the like, and have taken refuge in cities like Middenheim, so, if anything, I'm in perfect camouflage.
But you still have your connections. While Lady Marguerite von Wittgenstein may now be considered quite a low-class noble, you're also the hero of Middenheim. That never had anything to do with a noble title. That was you being part of a brave bunch of heroes who single-handedly saved the city. At least, that's what the people on the streets say. And that still has connections, such as the good Dr. Parvot and the court. And you have been able to meet the young Baron Stefan. It's been fascinating. As you've been researching his case over the last month, you have learned several interesting things. Firstly, their condition is fascinating. In the last 2 months, as you've said, you've been dealing with boils, broken legs and arms, an occasional stab wound, maybe a severe case of gout. The customers have largely been middle class, and you did initially even have some nobles come to you, although you think that will start drying up now that you are technically a disgraced noble. But his condition, fascinating. Some of the symptoms involve seizures, rashes, a whole lifetime apparently ever since he was a child of lethargy and difficulty focusing, and of course a very weak constitution, which has led to the poor boy not being able to walk. All on their own, these symptoms have possible causes, but all of them combined is something you frankly have never seen. No one has. You've been able to go over the notes given to you by Dr. Parvot, of course. Now the question is, what sort of research do you conduct on your own over the next, during this time?
My research has taken me through every book and annal that I have access to, including those at the Physicians Guild itself, when time allows, researching each individual symptom, trying to find a root cause and conflating it with another. It is quite possible, of course, that this boy is just frankly stricken with misfortune and has come down with multiple illnesses at the same time, but it seems unlikely. It often tends to be that the nobles, the powerful, are spared from such things. So that takes me to more esoteric studies. When Leah is abed and there's no patients around, hell, when Erica is asleep, that's when I will crack open the forbidden tomes again, have a read through. I found something quite interesting in one of them under my candlelight researches. One doctor, well, I assume he was a doctor, in the most recent book that we acquired from the Purple Hand, a Hammond Delin is, I believe, his or her, their name, refers to something called an excess of life, or excess of vitality. Where naturally, if someone is always plagued with illness, debilitating illness, that could be in excess of death energy. I don't believe in energies, mystical or otherwise, but I could well see an argument for an excess of life, causing things like convulsions and overwhelming the faculties of a body, making it do things that the body shouldn't, potentially setting certain organs in combat with another. The idea may be that the blood itself might revolt against the veins through which it travels, as this book says. It's quite fascinating. Now, the treatments suggested, not so much treatments as, they use all kinds of words I don't understand in these books, but they go everywhere from the treatments I will have seen, probably even practiced, the bloodletting, the cupping, placing heated cups on parts of the body to extract ill humours from the body, that kind of thing. That makes a certain degree of sense. But then they start going into the more, what the simple-minded folk would call necromancies of the world. Things that they do scare me. It isn't that I just dive straight into them head first and think, well, that's me bringing the dead back to life. But there is some logic to it. That there is an equilibrium, a balance that every body should have within. And that Stefan seems to have a little too much on one side and needs to be brought back to the centre. He needs almost exposure. He needs a little dusk in his life. He needs to be centered, grounded, use whatever fancy term you like. There may be a medicine that can do that. There may be a more holistic treatment that can do that. I'm even reading here about dropping a body in a bath that's filled with ice, or a trough that's filled with ice, to drive out some of the excess life. There's all kinds of interesting theories here that I am eager to practice, but I'm also aware that he is the son of the highest noble in this city, and if I do something truly experimental, it could result in my head being taken off my shoulders.
This is very true, especially when it comes to that book. After all, you have been able to glean a little, but I will say that to truly grasp that book requires its own time that might have to take away from normal research.
Yes, I'm only getting a surface read right now. I really have to delve in, read between the lines, essentially, translate those words I just have no understanding for. And that could result in the surgery suffering, in Lear's education suffering, and indeed Stefan suffering.
Indeed, and so I think you come to a point where you have to make a choice. You can either go down the route of actual medicine, known medicine at least, and your own skill to come up with some temporary treatments, or you can try and dedicate all your time to this book with its strange, leathery texture, these words. You have begun to realize that some of the translation issues are actually not a strange, unknown tongue, but actually Arabian. And there are people, of course, in the city who do speak Arabian, and you can begin to learn a little yourself or just use books for translation, so that could be done, but you will not have time to do both. Not well, at least. What will you choose?
I weigh it up in both hands. Do I consider this legitimate medicinal study, my surgery, my schooling of Lear, more important than my accessing, opening, digesting this forbidden knowledge that so few people of sound mind in Middenheim know? There's a huge amount of desire there. What I could become.
Could you make a coolness roll? Just a standard one.
That's a no. I'm prepared to take the failure and see what happens.
I mean, in a way, it's not just this one case. The book is thick. Quite a few pages. It's a bit badly treated, and a lot of it you've noticed is scrawl, as if the writer has just been doodling things, and you think different writers have written in this book. Again, it had no title. It just seemed to be a book of words and diagrams and strange things you couldn't understand, but some things that, well, maybe you could. It is very tempting. And at the end of the day, you don't necessarily need to do anything. Knowledge is knowledge. It's the practice that's the important thing, right? So what's the harm in just reading it and learning, even if you don't maybe take it all on board?
Yes, I think there is a third way then. There is a third hand. I don't have to go give up everything I've worked for, and I don't have to plunge fully into this esoterica. I can read it effectively for pleasure. And if I learn anything from it that way, then fantastic. And if I don't, well, there would have been far worse times I could have spent my energies. So let's do that. I will read it. Continue to read it by candlelight. I'm going to be tired in the mornings, I'm sure, but who knows what I might glean from these texts.
Certainly. In that case, we'll try and divide our time, but see how we do. First, I'd like you to make, for the 2 months, 2 research rolls, and please then tell me the total amount of success levels you gain.
Okay, so the first one, I roll an 8, which is underneath 78, as I'm on a plus 10.
So that would be 6 success levels?
Actually, 7 success levels if I'm on 78 because of my plus 10. And my next one is a 32, So that is going to be, what, 4 success levels because of my plus 10.
That is very good, being 11 success levels. Now I would like you to make 2 other research rolls. This time, I'm afraid, even though you have research, it will be at a flat rate, because without research, you'd actually be at a penalty. This other book is much harder to read. Let's see what you gather.
Well, my first one is a failure. I'm only on a 70 over 68, so I would like to spend
a fortune, why not?
Yes, I think so. Okay, well that is much better. That's a 12. Okay, and now we're on a 49.
Ooh, so it's 2 successes. How many success levels total?
6 in total.
Finally, Sigfreda, I would like you to make 2 coolness rolls. No penalty on the first roll, but then a -10 on the second roll, please.
On the first roll, I do particularly badly. I get an 89. I'm prepared to take the failure. My cool is 56, but I will take the 89 failure. On my second one, so now my cool is 46, I get a 02. I'll take that.
The truth is, at the end of the day, modern medicine is modern medicine, and you are very intelligent. Your research is easier. You're also able to confer with Dr. Parvot. He, after all, is fine with knowing that sort of thing. He gives you good advice. Again, his main field that had been successful in the treatment of Stefan was this strange thing called hypnotism. It took him some time to reveal it to you, because he did inform you that, yes, hypnotism, while it is something that is considered a legal art, especially in Tilia, some people around these parts of the old world, you say things like controlling people's minds, and they think you're talking of magic.
Yeah.
But he has actually informed you it is actually a very scientific procedure, simply a strange form of autosuggestion where if the patient wants to go along with it, they will, but if they don't, they won't. He's been using it as something he calls therapy. Again, a very odd word, but apparently something that has been considered in other parts of the world, not so much in the Empire, where treating the mind can be seen to be just as valid as treating the physical. It has been successful. He's managed to, with a few words, calm Stefan when he's having his seizures, and they do seem to calm the boy down. Fascinating. So on that front, you come to quite a few conclusions. And due to your immense success level, it's a rather unusual one. The rashes. Things like convulsions and lethargy, they can often speak of inner turmoil or things that come from birth, but rashes are often something to do with the skin. They often come from something like an allergy or a strange reaction to a plant. The fact that he has received these rashes is unusual, and it leads you to look at his blood, which of course you do, and you remember a very strange thing that happened a long time ago with your mentor. You remember he was looking over a new herb he'd gathered. Apparently it was from somewhere very far away, somewhere called Grand Cafe. A very advanced civilization, apparently, although you've never heard of it, and it's very far from the Empire, apparently all the way in the east, very, very far. But he'd come across this herb. It was apparently a poison, not a terribly potent one, but a mild one. But he was talking with someone in his office one day, and they were discussing rashes, and one of them had said something along the lines of, I know, of course, you wouldn't give this properly to someone, but it could be quite useful for treating, a case of a Grot's rash. And you remember that. Something good dealing with rashes, a very rare element. You find yourself wondering after a bit of study. What would happen if you tried a very small dose of this rare herb? Would it clear that rash? Would it affect anything else in the poor boy? It's very, very obscure. It took you quite a while to remember it, and even longer to get your hands on some. But you could try something with that. Your other research is fascinating, but not as productive. The problem with the book is that when you start digging into it, you find yourself expecting explanations of some of these medical formula, explanations of how some of these things work, and then you are greeted with strange text that makes no sense, or again, this language you don't know. You begin organising the purchase of some books of the basic Arabian language, and you are able to use that to begin translating. But then you start translating sentences that have nothing to do with what the previous page has been on about. They start talking of the promises of power, the bloodlines of Sylvania, the study of vampirism, which is fascinating, but then again continues to lead you down dead ends. And then finally, these things you were speaking of, the essence of life, the essence of death, you find yourself reading what can only be described as rituals, placing symbols on the ground, drawing things on skulls, but then at some point they always involve speaking words, and these words you do not understand. You try repeating them, maybe even sometimes aloud, and there are no sudden terrifying revelations, no explosions of the dead from the ground. Nothing happens. Nothing. You feel that in that line of research you're missing something. You're missing something. There's something that makes this work, but you don't know what that is, and the book doesn't really explain it. It just assumes you say these words, draw this blade across your palm, and a skull will form from the ground, or a corpse will come back to life. But it is fascinating. It does speak of several forms of the undead. It's not just living corpses. Some can be brought back with intelligence, some can be powerful, and again, there is talk of vampires. Beings that are undead, but very, very intelligent and very powerful, able to pass a curse through the blood via, what is it, the ingestion of blood? Again, it's all rather vague. And then, of course, there are names, but their names are hard to say, and you get headaches when you think about them too much. You feel you've gleaned a little from that book, Sigfreda, but maybe it needed more time, more dedication. You also have received one corruption point. Even though you're frustrated by the lack of results, it's still been a fascinating read. You think if you had more time, you could learn more. But for now, it's the other route that seems far more logical, far more reasonable. Still dangerous. You would be suggesting administering a poison, which you know that in too large a dose will straight up kill the boy. But maybe if it were just very tiny doses, and if you could convince the Dr. Parvot to go along with it, something could happen. Of course, all this could just be kept under your hat. What do you do?
No, I am, especially as a result of this corruption point, absolutely empowered. Not only am I reassured that I am not at personal risk because I lack this crucial element. If anything, that is a good thing. It means I can study, I can master, I can recite and recite until I remember off by heart all of these rituals without the risk of them ever actually coming to fruition. It also means that I can gain the knowledge without the cost, at least in my mind. And so the fact that Stefan is right there, the ideal research specimen, and I need to correct myself, no, he isn't a specimen, the ideal patient, the ideal patient in need of treatment, means that I reach out to Dr. Parvot as soon as I come to my possible conclusion. I need to share this with him. Not everywhere I've been and every book I've read to find this out, but at least my conclusions and some of how I've reached them, because I'm going to need his help and possibly his money to source some of the ingredients for this medicine I intend to make.
Indeed. Apparently is, in Reichspiel at least, called the Black Lily. A simple name, but sometimes these things are simply named. And with his help, you are able to come across this material. It does cost a little coin. which at this point you have managed to gain 25 gold crowns, 12 or 13 from general practice, and another 10 or 15 on top of that for some bonuses from good doctoring skill and some of the contacts you've made. So you have made some money during this time. We'll say, though, in this case, only a couple of gold crowns to get this dose.
Good, because it means I can help start paying off my debt. But most importantly right now, the Black Lily. It does have a simple name, but it tends to be plants when they have the word black in, tend to be quite ominous, poisonous. Like my research tells me, too much of this and I could kill the Graf's son. That would not be good for anybody.
And time passes, and you're able to make your treatment and treat the patient. And there are results. Yes, there are a few nights where you perhaps are concerned. Will you come to the palace in the morning and find a corpse and be hanged? Or will you be lauded? There are results. Due to the application of your elixir, with Dr. Parvot's help, of course, you are able to work out the right dose. Very small, a tablespoon. And just see. Stefan's rashes recede a little. This is no miracle cure. But as the weeks pass, he does have a little more energy. His fits are a little less frequent. This is... Well, what do you make of this, Sigfreda? Luigi Parvot is full of joy. This is incredible. He thinks you have made a breakthrough.
This is progress, Dr. Parvot, I say, shaking him by the hand. This is nothing more than progress on the route to a cure. We're not done, but we have taken the first step, I think. I'm most grateful to you for all that you have been able to give me here, and of course the access that you've provided to Stefan. I would not, the Baron, I would not have had it without you.
My dear, I am honoured myself, and trust me, the Graf is over the moon, and my goodness dear, a genius, an absolute genius! This is incredible! And it is incredible. You do not think the boy will ever walk. You do not know if this will actually get rid of the condition, or perhaps simply be a way of dealing with it. But the boy himself, the young man even, is very happy, and thanks you profusely. And you have gained favour with the Graf himself. You have helped his son. How do you feel, Sigfreda, as it finally comes to the 3rd month? You've done something incredible. This could lead to great research. Yes, you have to go through the collegium and the commission and the Physicians Guild, and they are not quite as accepting of you. There is some begrudging respect. You've earned it, but it doesn't suddenly win you the guild's friendship. There are still rumours about you, but some doctors do begin at least nodding with respect in your direction.
There are plenty of travelling apothecaries who claim they can cure hair loss, impotence, and all kinds of conditions with a miracle potion for 1 out of 10 patients. It works, and for a while a village hails them a hero. But then everything goes wrong. So I understand why the Physicians Guild sees me with some suspicion. But I can't be humble about this. I am proud as I ever have been. This is proof that I can do it. What's more, it's proof that despite the fact I am, first and foremost, a surgeon, I have surpassed the apothecary who taught me. There is no way he would have been able to work like this, access this kind of patient, be recognised so well by the Physicians Guild or by the Graf himself. So no, I am very, very happy, and happy to share that happiness with not only Stefan and Dr. Parvot, but also with Leah. When it comes time to return to the surgery, I will actually shake her by the hand as well. What you have seen, my apprentice, is that the hard work, the research that we do, can lead to great things. And I would not have been able to do that if you were not doing such a fine job of running this surgery whenever my head was in a book. So we will continue to work together, but I consider you not just my apprentice, but also my partner in these things. You will be an integral part in any future treatment that I devise.
She's honoured as she starts to bow before you, but then stops herself and just says, "I know, Doctor, incredible, helping out the Grafs, the future heir of the city."
Well, just think, Leah. We are getting to trial a treatment on one of the most powerful men in this city. If it is successful, think of all the lower-born people with similar ailments of convulsions, of rashes, of lethargy, of all kinds. This is the quickest way to get a treatment approved. Have it work on a noble. There's many treatments, old wives' tales, and so forth that we pass among ourselves, that peasants pass among themselves, I correct myself, that never get recognised. But we're working the system the other way round, aren't we? Start from the top and let it roll down.
And so you go to bed with a smile on your face, Erica happily wagging her tail as she greets you. And then there's that book. I mean, well, it's kind of done its job, right? But it hadn't finished. As the days go on, and you get back, at least for now, to some more normal doctoring, if you like, you could do one more research role, you could do a few more late nights and just dedicate yourself to study of that book. Or you could just leave it locked away in the cupboard you've been keeping it. For now. Your choice.
Oh no, what harm would reading one more page do?
Please make one more research roll, and then immediately after, one more coolness roll at a -15.
Okay, research goes very well. I get a 5 out of 68. Cool. On a -15, so let's roll. It's again not bad at all. 17 out of 41.
Then you read the book, well into the night, several times. Yes, sometimes you think you hear some whispering behind you, but you turn round and there's no one there, and it's logical. You perhaps need to go to bed a little early. You have been quite stressed doing all this doctoring. Perfectly logical explanation for those whispers. And the book reveals more to you. The names, you can read them now. Tzeentch, Architect of Fate. Nurgle, Grandfather. The Dark Prince Slanesh. And Khorne, Lord of Bones. These are the names of gods. Gods that offer several things. Again, at this point, the writing is no longer very academic and more, some would say, the ramblings of someone very unhappy. But there is information there. Want to dominate your foes? Spill blood in the name of Khorne? Wish to live forever and master disease? Embrace Grandfather Nurgle? Wish to enjoy life to the fullest and experience pleasures unknown, pay respects to the Dark Prince, and wish for power unimaginable and knowledge of all things? Beseech Tzeentch, the gods of chaos. They are spoken of in this book. You do not have a full bestiary, you do not have a full list of rituals, and there isn't even that much information about the Purple Hand itself, funnily enough. After all this time, it's almost as if this book was... Well, you did hear on the grapevine from your friend Kruger, when you did bring it up, that apparently one of these lieutenants of the Purple Hand was that necromancer, a man known as Bahir, a Vizier Bahir from Araby. Turns out maybe he had his own intentions when he joined that cult. You do know that that was the name of the man you took care of on that night. The one who apparently had the guise of the Graph on before being shot out a window by Heinrich. Allegedly, as well, you've heard from Kruger that that last layer you took out, that laboratory, that place, was apparently his.
Indeed, and this isn't the first time I have heard the name Tzeentch. There's been more than one of these cultists have called out to him. I'm fairly certain, indeed, one of the Wittgensteins shouted it. But that hardly comes as a surprise, all this talk of change and chaos, and given what their bodies were going through. I am, on one hand, enticed, and on the other, well, this perhaps tells me, quite stolidly, that this is the end of my researching this particular book. We are now entering the ramblings of, as you say, an unhappy person, to put it mildly. Unhappy in the mind. This person giving all their thoughts, their devices, they came up in the first half of this book with so many radical treatments, some of which might even work, and now rambling diatribes about how these gifts came from gods and how you can devote yourself to some chaotic entity that would warp you, take command of you. Oh yes, great power being offered. The power to live forever, power over disease, and so on and so forth. That's the talk of someone who lost control. I am not going to lose control.
Of course not. And there is one other thing that comes up. As you said, these ramblings of demons and gods, but you do go back to the beginning of the book. There was someone else mentioned often. It's hard to know exactly what is meant, but several times the name Nagash is spoken, normally in terms like the Canticles of Nagash, or as Nagash first demonstrated. But he's not spoken of as a god. It's more like an individual, or someone who is important, it seems, in the lore of necromancy.
Clearly someone worth researching in future.
Perhaps. But for now, the hour is late, and you go to bed, and again, there's a slight whisper from somewhere, but it's just Erica coming up onto the bed and sleeping with you. Nothing to worry about.
Yes, as I fall asleep, there is one thing I resolve to do over the coming weeks, if I have the time. I will make my own transcription of the salient contents in that book, and then the original will be burned. There is no point to keeping something like that. It ended up in the wrong hands. Well, we've seen the kinds of people it produces. But the useful information, the medicinal information, well, if this book is considered forbidden, how about if the work within it is, the good work within it is attributed to the newly heroic Lady von Wittgenstein? So I am quite smug as I hold on to Erica and fall asleep.
Indeed. And you have just earned yourself lore necromancy and lore demonology. Feel free to add those to your character sheet. You will have to, obviously, if you want to level them further, level them with XP, but I'm happy for you to get the base values now. You have lore on these things. It's very good lore. It's lore you'll have to be careful with. Some people would accuse you of certain things, but, well, it could be useful down the line. And so, it's been 3 months since your adventures with your friends. Time has truly flown, and while you've heard whisperings in the night and been reading suspicious books, that's the only trouble you've really known. No more people diving into your room at night saying, "Where's Castelliberung?" No strange people tugging on their ears, talking about purple hands. Just peaceful days, really, working in the city. A city that is undergoing a lot of stress, but at least other people can take care of that for now. But this morning is a little unusual, because as you come down, you realise your apprentice is not here. You check the clock, and she is late. This is the first time she's been late in her entire apprenticeship. Now, granted, about 10 minutes later she does turn up, but 10 minutes late? What on earth's going on? What do you do?
Leah, what's your excuse?
Oh, my apologies, Doctor. I have no excuse. I was due at my usual, morning at the collegium, to pick up the papers and hand in the essay I've been handing on, and there was this massive commotion, and I just couldn't get out of the collegium quick enough. I'm sorry, there were so many guards, so many people buzzing around.
Well, we now have 2 patients lined up. We're going to have to do 2 amputations at the same time. Let's hope we get the right leg on each one.
Of course, Doctor. Again, my apologies. There'd been a murder at the collegium, and I was even questioned, of course, but they were questioning everybody.
Is that so? A murder at the collegium?
Oh, yes. Did you know, were you familiar with a, Professor, Eunice Hush?
I've heard so many names. Am I familiar with that name?
Not greatly, but it does ring a bell. You remember just the other day, you had a little leaflet sent through your door. There was something happening at the collegium earlier this morning. Again, the collegium opens early and does like to do some of its things quite early. What was it about again? And you go upstairs to find the piece of paper that had this information on it. Here it is. It said, "A public demonstration by Professor Eunice Hush revealing the anatomy of 2 recently acquired examples of a species hitherto unknown to science, Raticus homunculus. Free to all of a curious disposition. At the Theatre of Anatomy, the Collegium Theologica, doors open at noon on Festag." That was yesterday. Yes, that was yesterday. You think you actually even remember Dr. Parvot saying, "Would you like to go and attend?" But quite frankly, you had better things to do.
Huh. Well, interesting. Fine, that's a perfectly valid reason to be late, though try not to make a habit of getting caught in murder plots. I should probably go and see if it is anything that concerns me. I wrinkle my brow. It's less that it concerns me, more this is the kind of thing that's going to draw the Krugers and Heinrichs out of the woodwork, and if they are drawn, I will have to be too. Not that I begrudge that. It would actually be quite nice to connect with them again and let them know about all the rashes I've cured. But more importantly, a murder, a high-profile murder in a high-profile place.
Indeed. You make your way down there to the Collegium Theologica. Again, as you've learnt, that's the place where the professors are. Some of them technically are doctors, but they don't have the title doctor, instead have a fancier title, and they don't tend to practice. Instead, they come up with the theories, and you actually yourself had to go through them a few times with your own theories, which they had to approve of, which seemed utter nonsense, but that sadly seems to be how the law works around here.
Well, I'll make my way there with Erica leaving Leah to perform the amputations as I'm heading out.
As you make your way down to the Collegium, again, a fine building. It is a place where people learn. It is a university. Several things are taught here. And the people who learn things here will often then go on to good positions in guilds and so on and so forth. But it also, of course, has its own professors who research things. What was this professor again? You think something about this bestiaria. Bestiaria. She was a professor of bestiaria. And you find not a lot, because you're not allowed anywhere near the place. There are several members of the Watch and Knights quartering off the whole area, conducting an investigation. But you do notice nearby Dr. Luigi Parvot and another doctor who you've had the displeasure to meet only a few times, Dr. Lanslow Lindworm, a rather slimy individual with very bad teeth.
Dr. Parvot, Dr. Lindworm.
Ah, Lady Marguerite! A pleasure is always a pleasure! Oh my goodness, what a fuss, what a fuss!
I heard, and I had to attend in case there was anyone in need of medical attention.
Dr. Lanslow turns to you with a sneer, but he hides it very quickly. This is something you've become experienced to. in your own profession. Quite a few people have wanted to sneer at you or wave their finger at you, but because you are a lady, they always hide it. As does this man. Oh, well, my lady, sadly too late. The good professor is already very dead.
Oh, I'm sad, Dr. Lindworm, that you weren't able to reach the professor in time.
Terrible, but no loss. As we all know, she was a hack and a fraud, as proven yesterday. A tragedy, but no loss to the community. Now, Lindworm, that's a little harsh. Yes, yesterday went awfully, but that was... Well, I don't believe it was her fault. You are too kind. Yesterday was a travesty. A travesty. But at least it proved that she was a hack.
Dr. Lindworm, any life lost is a loss. From the lowliest peasant to the mightiest noble. If this woman was murdered, it does not matter whether I'm guessing her research yesterday was proven to be, well, bunk, as they say.
The two doctors look at you and nod. Dr. Laszlo says, "Oh, my lady, thank you. Thank you again for your words of wisdom. Yes, you are, of course, right." And he gives you a smile, revealing, again, he definitely has lost teeth, and he's replaced them with some terrible metal contraptions.
You know, Dr. Lindworm, and I say this as a medical professional, I have been experimenting with ivory teeth replacements. While I'm sure your metal contraptions are perfect for sawing through barely cooked meat, ivory certainly, well, attracts a better crowd.
Oh, it certainly does, my lady. Thank you. Thank you again for your wisdom, and I, of course, will love to hear your theories on it, but when is your actual first paper coming out? It's so funny that you have so few. Truly a crime, because we're all looking forward to the years of papers coming from you.
Oh, no, Dr. Pavot, I can see you're prepared to jump to my defense, gentleman that you are. I say, oh good, I've been looking forward to one of these. Well, as luck would have it, I have been working on a paper of my own, putting down some of my experimental medical theories that I look forward to having tested rigorously, I say, referring to my big book of chaos that I'm currently stealing ideas from. But more important than that, you see, I have been so awash with patients and, of course, my work with the Graf's son, that I have been kept entirely from spending time putting quill to paper. Such is the life of being a well-regarded doctor in the city. Eh, Dr. Pavot?
Oh, quite, my lady, quite, yes. She is moving on to great things. You would be wise to pay attention to that, my friend Lindworm. Of course, no, I would, of course. I certainly will be paying attention, but again, I have my own things, including my experimentations on ridding the city of cats. Yes, you have heard, for some unusual reason, Dr. Lanza Lindworm believes cats are a great carrier of disease and has been petitioning for their removal from the city for at least a month now.
And as I have made plain to you before, Dr. Lindworm, while I will be interested to see the results of your grand anti-feline experimentation, I do worry that the removal of cats will only lead to a burgeoning of the rat population.
Well, that's what the Rat Catchers Guild are for, and they do a good job, as I'm sure you'll come to find.
Oh, I'm fully on board with what the rat catchers do, but do we really want to make their lives harder?
Perhaps not. Anyway, I'm a busy man, I have places to be, but yes, for your information, a total hack, and I'm pretty sure that's why she was murdered. There were, after all, riots here yesterday. She was proposing she'd found a new species of rat people, which would of course not technically be a new species, but that she'd rediscovered them. Dr. Pavot frowns and says, "Yes, but, well, my lady, unfortunately it turned out to be a fake. Quite an obvious one."
Oh, that's quite shocking. I had heard that she was held in quite high regard, but I suppose you can't pass a con by the great minds of Middenheim, can you?
Well, no, I mean, she literally captured some random beast man, cut its head off, and sewed a giant rat's head onto it. We could see the stitches in the auditorium. It was so obvious. She, of course, put on this big show of surprise, but, well, she'd probably just losing her mental faculties.
Still, you know, Dr. Lindworm, what I would have been interested to ask? Instead of rushing to judgment and calling her a hack, let's say, I probably would have asked her, why... where did you find a rat so large that its head could fit on a human or beast person's body?
They can grow quite large.
Especially when the cats are being culled.
Well, we'll never know. She's dead, and I'm not part of the watch, so I have places to be. But good day.
Good day to you as well, Dr. Lindworm. Good luck with the cat catching.
And off he goes. Pavot comes over to you and sighs. I don't know, my lady. I did know the professor. She was not a bad one. A little eccentric and prone to hiring rather unusual orderlies. People from... Well, I shouldn't judge, but, they just seemed quite... They never seemed interested in me. Most orderlies you think are interested in the science, and they seemed very much the sort of people who'd normally be more interested in manual labour, but...
Well, I may have a sly look into things myself, Dr. Parvol, just to satisfy a curiosity, and maybe I can speak to some friends of mine to get some answers.
Well, that's true. You do have your friend, what's his name? Kruger Hoffman. I believe he's doing quite well in that commission. Maybe you can get some inside gossip. We'd all like to know.
Well, maybe that will start with my being re-invited to parties, things that I rather cruelly neglected, including some of your own invitations, Dr. Parvot, because I was just so committed to the foundation of my surgery.
Lady, you do not need to worry, and I, for one... Well, you know how I feel about the whole thing. Yes, you lost your barony, but so what, eh? You have greater calling. It's nothing to do with your own person. All these people saying that you're some... Well, I'm not going to repeat the scandalous rumours I've heard, quite frankly. They are awful.
No, please repeat them. They are amusing to me.
Are you sure? Things like you're some silly noble who just ran away from all your responsibilities to become a hack doctor or something, which of course you've demonstrated quite clearly is not the case.
It sounds to me like the language of one Dr. Lindworm.
Oh, not just him. All of them. All of them.
Well, between you and I, Dr. Parvot, if I were a silly noble that ran away from her responsibilities to take up a calling such as this, would that be truly a bad thing? I mean, surely better this than overseeing a village of paupers. There are people far better suited to that kind of administration, or tyranny depending on their whim, than myself.
Well, my dear, you are talking to the converted. Remember, I'm Tillian. We don't have all this nonsense. I mean, well, you obviously have nobles, but it's quite different in Tillia. If you don't like a noble, just hire an assassin and stab him. Not that I ever would do that, of course.
No, it's just one way to, lance a boil, I suppose.
And so you depart from your conversation, and you depart back home, although you do stop off for some lunch and a bit more conversation with the doctor, arriving back home quite late in the evening, actually. You could indeed look into this a bit more. You never know. Maybe Kruger has heard of something. It does seem as if this murder will be taken seriously and taken as watch business. But you have more pressing concerns. It's late. You know by now, of course, your apprentice should have locked up and left. But as you return to your home, with Erica by your side, of course, the door is open, very slightly to your surgery. You look around. The streets aren't quite empty, but there's no watch patrol currently nearby. What do you do?
I'll call in from outside. Leah, what's going on?
No response.
All right, I will walk in, Erica in front of me.
You walk in, Erica in front of you. She begins to growl. You see movement. 2 people have been sitting in the waiting room area you've designed. 3 more people slowly come down the stairs that lead up. 3 of them are armed with crossbows, 2 of them with clubs. 1 comes forward. These individuals smell quite bad. They smell of sewer, literally. And they all quite dirty and unkempt looking. The man who comes before you seems to be missing a tooth. He smiles. Lady Marguerite, apologies for the late visit, but we have an urgent problem and we really need Lady Wittgenstein yourself, sir. Help. And be careful with the dog. The dog begins growling, ready to spring to your defense. But of course there are 5 of these people, and they have crossbows. What do you do?
Oh, I know when I'm outnumbered. This was always the benefit of travelling in a party. I only hope that Lear hasn't been killed, and I say, have you harmed my apprentice?
Why would we do that? We're here to talk to you.
Because she should be here.
She locked up an hour ago. We helped ourselves in, sorry. Now, we'll be on our way, but we need to know where your grandfather hid some of the stones. We know you had some at your family home. We know about that little tower he had, but we want you to tell us where more is, because we know he had more, and well, he was your grandfather. You were very close, weren't you? So where did he hide his special little stones?
Well, I would already have to think about that, I say, rather trying to buy some time, not expecting the watch to come anywhere nearby. Can I make a bluff?
Please do.
So I'll say first what I want them to believe. Well, you may know that I am no longer the Baron of Wittgendorf. And that is because I am, well, making the place a sanctuary for my grandfather's legacy. I didn't bring any of his treasures with me to Middenheim. I'm here breaking off from my family, but in the ruins of that tower, you will find them. You will find everything that belonged to him and the rest of my family, and you are welcome to it. I want nothing to do with it anymore. I have the name, and that's enough for me.
Make your bluff roll at a -10.
Yeah, I'm not thinking this is going to work. What skill does bluff come under? Charm?
It would come... Yes, actually, it would. It would come under charm.
Yeah, that's not a success. That is a 70 over 39.
The 2 men with clubs take a step forward. Erica begins to growl very loudly. But at that point, the other 3 enter the room from upstairs, and 2 of them just lazily aim their crossbows at the dog. I mean, we've already gone to the tower, but we want to know where you've got a secret place. We're already having words with your sister. Maybe you should come with us and we'll have a nice chat, and you'll tell us everything that you know.
How about this? And I understand you did not buy my attempt to send you off to Wittgendorf. Then fine. If you're such a good read of character, you will know that when I tell you I don't know where these stones are, I have no idea where these stones are. They were never entrusted to me. They were never shown to me. I've never seen them. I wouldn't even be able to describe them. The shape of them, the way they glow, their colour. Nothing like that. I know nothing about them. So, you can take me with you to my sister, if you need. But I hope that you can tell from the fact that I am not panicking, that I am not sweating, that my stink is quite pleasant compared to some ripe odours in this room, that I'm telling you the truth. I have no idea.
That's a pity then, but maybe we can get a bit more from the other one then. The second man with a club begins stepping behind you to block the exit.
If it is that you wish to take me away somewhere, then fine, but what else can I do for you?
We'll find out when we begin the chat. Some people say a lot more when you convince them with sharp, eloquent words. And 2 more laugh. The man behind you is beginning to raise his club. What do you do, Sigfreda?
Well, I'm fully aware of the long-lasting damage that a head injury could do to me. I don't want to be clubbed on the head. I'm also aware that I've got crossbows pointed at me. But, for all I know, they're going to torture me. I know what that's like, having tortured someone else now. I'm fully aware that from a moral perspective I probably deserve it, but I can't guarantee these stinky sewer types are going to stop when I did. So I'm going to have to go all out and try and escape. So I've got to shout, "Erica!" Point back quickly at the one that's about to hit me. And I am going to use my strike to stun. I very rarely use my talents. I'm going to use my strike to stun. I always have my small club with me to crack one across the head. And then hopefully run out into the street.
Wonderful. Please then roll strike to stun. How exactly do you stun this individual behind you?
Well, that chair that was until recently occupied by patients with boils on their behinds is now going to get swung at head height toward the closest of these stench-ridden sewer dwellers, hopefully knocking them back. I have my strike to stun talent, so that is exactly what this pummeling chair could be used for. Meanwhile, with Erica hopefully doing as she's commanded, launching herself at the kidnapper behind me, I'm hoping that will cause enough confusion that both myself and the dog can run into the street.
Please make your roll.
Would you like me to roll melee basic first, or shall I go for animal care for Erica? How do you want me to do this?
I would like you to roll your melee, your weapon skill. But then I'd also like you to roll Erica's weapon skill. She does have one after all. Let's roll it.
Well, my melee actually comes off nicely. This is a 0-1.
That is very good. Your action, you grab that chair and you swing it. This guy does try and get out of the way, but you do catch him a bit off guard by your sudden ferocity, and you successfully clonk him on the head. He does not fall to the ground unconscious, but he does stumble back, clutching his head, and isn't able to do anything.
The main aim is to hopefully make him fall back into his compatriots, because they're all clustered so closely together, but hopefully that has done the trick, because now I'm going to roll for Erica, and that one's slightly ropier. It's a 50, but that is underneath her skill. Just trying to knock the guy prone.
Unfortunately, as Erica dives for the man blocking the door, she is able to get him out of the way, but he then just backhands her and causes her to retreat, taking no injury. He's quite a large man, this one. An opening has been created, but the 3 gentlemen with crossbows do aim and fire. 2 of them fire at you. Luckily, one goes across your head, but one of them does hit you. You take 8 damage. Keeping in mind, your toughness will reduce that.
Well, just as well. I will do my best, even if it means she has to jump through a window. I am going to just scream out, "Run, Erica! Run!" And I will dive for the door, because there's an opening, even if it means I get another bolt hitting me. My main objective now is to get Erica out of here safely. If she can smash through a window and run to safety, then that's what's most important, because I know if I run and leave her here, she is going to be killed, almost certainly butchered by these things.
Indeed, and as you call out that command, she begins to dive for the window. You see that third man, he aims his crossbow, but then there's something wrong with the mechanism. Even though he has a clear shot on Erica, instead he just swears as the weapon jams, and therefore she is able to jump out a window.
Alright, with the crossbow bolt hanging out my shoulder blade, I am going to run for it.
Please make your agility roll, but at a -10 due to the crossbow sticking out of your arm.
I'm going to use a point of resilience. I've been hoarding them for so long. To get the best possible outcome here, which is 2.
That is certainly the best possible outcome. Sigfreda, you dive for the exit. That man, who was mostly blocking it, was moved, but still hale and hearty. He makes a grab for you, but you just manage to duck past him as he crashes into the doorway. You goddamn noble bastard! And you're out into the street, and you run. With Erica, you are just running and running until you find a watch patrol, and you bump into them, and you're able to tell them what's happening, and they quickly come back with you. And these men are gone. They're gone. There's a little bit of a scene of a struggle. There's a few crossbow bolts on the floor, and your window was damaged by Erica. But they're gone. And you have watch here, and you're a lady, and they are immediately tending to you. You do have a crossbow bolt in your arm. What do you do about that?
I will ask one of the watch. Please go to... and I put a silver coin in his hand. Go to the residence of Dr. Luigi Parvot. Tell him what has occurred here. He will arrive here. He needs to treat me. For all I know, this has been dosed with a poison or infection. But I need you to fetch him.
And the soldier nods. And you sit down. Sigfreda, what is happening? These people, they weren't pulling their ears. They weren't talking about Castellibrook. They wanted you. They wanted your grandfather. They wanted Lady Marguerite von Wittgenstein.
Well, I sigh. I pinch the bridge of my nose. It is certainly true that in this world, impersonating someone else's identity, especially when they are affiliated with a chaos cult, rarely leads to something good in the long term. Did I learn nothing through Castellibrook? It's too late now. I'll lose everything if I suddenly start out that, no, I am just a peasant girl. Sigfreda, I can't do that, I can't risk it, and they won't stop. We've tried that before with this whole caster thing. No, once again, we're going to have to fight back people pursuing us, or at least me. I'm going to have to send messages. Get a messenger to find Kruger, Heinrich, maybe even Gurnar. Let them know that I've been ambushed. They will... I hope they will come. I'm sure they will. I would for them.
One thing seems certain. You have a horrible feeling that the life you want to live is once again going to be interrupted. How do you feel?
Downhearted. Crestfallen. And yet, on some level, this always felt inevitable. The good times never last. You try, you work and you toil. And then chaos raises its head and takes a bite out of your upward trajectory. Well, once again we've got to stamp it down. Put out the fire. Even if it's just so we can have another few months of respite.
Indeed. But for now, all you can do is rest and wait for the night to pass. Who knows what could still happen.
You have listened to an episode of Red Moon Roleplaying, where we play the legendary campaign The Enemy Within for Warhammer Fantasy Roleplay 4th Edition, published by Cubicle 7. In this fourth part of the series, we are tackling The Horned Rat. Joining us as players in this series are none other than Aaron Hammonds from Queen's Court Games and our dear friend Matthew Dawkins. The music was made by Flowers for Body Snatchers, Wordclock, Metatron Omega, Aegerstonus, Apocryphus, Halgrath, and Northumbria, featuring a number of collaborations with other artists, and was used with permission from their label Cryochamber. Check out their website at cryochamber.bandcamp.com or their YouTube channel for some moody dark ambient for your gaming table. We'd like to give massive thanks to our champions of the Red Moon, Martin Heuschober, Simon Cooper, David, Julia, Camilla, Bob Lange, Cameron, Antxon, Graham Barey, and Doug Thomson for their generous support. And we would of course also like to thank all of our other patrons. Without your support, the show would not be possible. If you want to support our work, please check us out on Patreon. You can get access to bonus campaigns for Cult Divinity Lost and Coriolis there, as well as get early and raw access to all of our recordings. You can also hear your name read on the show as a champion of the Red Moon, as well as play Cult with us. Most importantly, that support is what keeps the show going, so do check us out there. Thank you again for listening, And remember that Skaven are definitely not real, and even if they were, the Emperor has already dealt with that threat.